So let me comment out this code really quick. This is the code, right, that made an array that contained 2 people. And let me comment out our third, right, because that actually didn't even work. So let's leave this comment, and this is going to be kind of our example of how array works. Let's try building a list that contains 2 people and then printing it out. And then we'll see if maybe we can, well, we'll talk about adding C, but it'll be kind of a little bit later. Let's first focus on displaying the information inside of a list and seeing kind of how it contrasts. So over in person, right, person's the class I've been working in this whole time. I only really need 1 change. Actually, it's going to be 2. The first thing I need to do is add a new member variable. So I'm going to add this pointer to next, right, or next reference, right? What is the person that follows the person I'm currently at? Person next. And then over here, I'm going to want to set it up in my constructor. I'm going to set next equal to null, right? So whenever I create a person, initially there's no one after them. Given though that I've set next initially and null, I do need to have a method that'll update it. So let me actually add in a couple things here. So I'm going to add in our mutators, right, our getters and our setters. So let's first do our getter. So let's do public person, get person, or get next. And then this one, right, this is going to be a method, right, that returns the person after the current person. So I'll do return next, right? It's going to return the next person in line, if you would, or something. And then we have the setter, right, something that can update the next to be, essentially saying, okay, the person that follows you is now this other person, right? That's what we're saying. So let's write set next. And here, right, we do need a parameter, so person p, put our curlies in, and then we'll go next equal p. So these are going to be our 2 methods that let us manipulate that next variable that we've put inside of this object, or this class, I should say. This is all we need to make this person class into a linked structure. Right now, every person knows about another person. So let's scroll down. Let's see how we go about duplicating this code. Let's start by making a linked structure of just 1 person, because that's the simplest thing we can do. Let's do this. Let me put in a new person variable. I'm also going to call this people, right? But now, right, remember in the back of your head that we've changed person class, right? So this isn't going to be kind of the same person, right, that we had over here in this example. We've added some functionality. Over here, right, we don't use bracket notation for list, only for arrays. So over here, right, I have a person, and over here what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to go equal new person, and over here, let me kind of copy my data down. Let's put A in. This is the equivalent of me creating 1 link in that chain, right? Remember those pictures we saw before. Let me actually go down and we can draw this, right? So let's say we have a person, right? I'm going to draw a box here, and I'm going to use notation that's a little bit different than the book. I'm going to put in this little thing up here, and what this is going to represent is our next, right? So this is going to, eventually I'm going to end up drawing arrows that lead out of that and go to somewhere else, right? But what I want to do is I want to indicate that, oh, there's some data inside there, right? There's some information being stored there, but then there's also this next thing, right? Which tells us, oh, well, this is the next link in the chain, if you would. And up top, let me write in a little p, and p is actually going to be representing our people variable. So let me draw a picture here. So p is the people variable, and so initially, right, we have people equal new person. That's the equivalent of p being a reference to a new object, right? This rectangle I've drawn down here is an object, right? It's a person object, and p, or people, right, is referencing it. So I'm drawing an arrow there to represent that. So let's go back up here. And let's actually go ahead and implement the kind of the full code for adding a node to this list. So my goal is I want to add a new node to my linked list, right? I'm going to add it at the front of it. So how would I do that? So let's go down here. Let me scroll down a bit. Let's go insert node. The first thing I need to do is make sure I build a new object, right? I need something to put into that list. I need a new rectangle down there. So let's type in person. I'm going to call this, let's call it P2. And we'll also go down here and we'll copy the line of code again, right? So we're going to build the same person as we had in our array example. Here we have, okay, P2. Now at this point though, these variables have no relationship to each other, right? People, right, is not linked to P2, right? That first person isn't linked to the second person. So how do we do that? Let's actually jump down and do this in a picture really quick. Let me move this over just so we have kind of more space to work with. Right now, this is how our world looks. But let's say I've already, all of a sudden, I build this new person, right, person P. Let me actually go over, I'm going to add the letter A here, right? So this is representing person A. So let's say I have a new object, and I'm also going to use this notation here. And this is going to store our B, right? So initially, right, we have over here, let's call this P2, right? So P2 is pointing at B. You know, at this point in time, I'm kind of wishing I had bought a digitizer. It's kind of a pain to draw this stuff out. So what we have here is going to be, right, our scene so far, right? We have two different variables, people and P2, both of them point at different objects, right? Different people. Our goal now is to link them together. Well, there's going to be two steps. So the first thing I need to do, and let me change colors here really quick. The first thing I need to do is link B to A. So here I draw on my arrow, right? P2's next should link to A, right? So all of a sudden, instead of essentially nothing being after person B, I want it to be the case that person A follows person B, right? So initially B's next was null. All what I need to do is I need to set it equal to A. And let's actually write that line of code really quick. So let's say I have my person P2, right? I want to update it so that the person after them, right, is person A. I'll type in this. P2.setNext of people. And that's the equivalent of me drawing this arrow here, right? All of a sudden, the thing after B is A, right? Is the thing that was stored in people, right? We said that, oh, this P here, I just kind of drew it short so I could save time. This, right, was a person variable. So now, right, because I'm going P2.setNext of people, B's next, right, is now the thing stored inside of people, which happened to be A. So this is step one. The second thing I need to do to make this kind of a real list is update people. So instead of having people point at A, what I want to do is I want to make it point at P2. Right? So what my goal is to make people be the reference to the first person stored in my whole list. Right now I have this bigger list that has two things in there. What I want to do is I want to maintain people as being a reference, right? A variable that references the first person in that linked list, right? The first person in that chain. And maybe over here I could have drawn my arrows a little bit better. Let's do this. P points to B. Again, my goal here, right, is that people, right, is going to reference or point to the very first person in the list, and then that person, right, is going to lead me, right, via the next, right, he's going to lead me to the other people in that chain, however many there may be. So let's jump up. Let's try to complete this with our code. It's going to be a little simpler this time. So let's jump up here, and I'm going to type in people equal P2. And that's all I need, right? All of a sudden, right, instead of people pointing at A, people is now going to point at B, right? The thing that was stored in B, right? Remember that P2, right? P2 is a variable that stored a reference or was pointing at B. So if we set people equal to P2, that means that now people is pointing at or referencing the same thing that P2 is, right? So now P has this arrow over here, right? So that it actually looks at B instead of A. Let me actually jump up here to update our little picture to make it look like how it's actually going to be in the program. So the main thing, right, is that this here is going to go away. And I guess let me actually, I have to back up for a second. I forgot to label my little arrow here. So this is really step 2, right? I have to do 2 things. And I could put this up here as well, right? So this is step 1, this is step 2. So this is how our picture looks in our program. We have the people variable, which is now referencing B, and B references A. We also have P2, which is referencing B, and then A. So at this point in time, these two variables are kind of equivalent, right? But it doesn't matter. Once we add kind of more things to the front of this list, people will kind of be maintained as the only thing we need, right? We only need to know about the very first person in the list. We don't really need to know about the people in between. As long as we know about the first one, we can walk forward via these little links and eventually get to whatever person we want to look at. Now that we've implemented adding one person to this link structure, we can go ahead and do our third. So in fact, right, there is no kind of default size for a list, right? We're literally just adding something completely new each time we need a new element in that data structure, right? There's no fixed size involved, right? So this code, it doesn't really care, right, if I have 2 or if I have 3, right? I would just have to duplicate this code again, and I would get another node that I can add. So over here, right, hopefully you caught that. I just did a quick copy paste of this insert node code. So let's say this first code, right, was inserting B, and then our second code that I just copy pasted is going to be inserting node C. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then we're going to do a compile, and we're going to make sure that everything works out. So over here, let me copy paste the code that I had for the person C over here, right? This is the line of code that caused the program to crash before. Let's go over here, right? Let's copy paste this in, and then I'm gonna update my variable here, right? So I'm gonna update P3 throughout, right? So all those P2s are now P3s. And the process here, right, is identical, right? Where this is again the generic code that we use to add a new node to the beginning of a linked list, or to the beginning of a linked structure. Linked structure, right, is kind of the more generic term. Let's go ahead and try compiling this, so it works. Let's run it, right? So hopefully we don't get a crash here. Okay, so it looks like it ran fine. It still has the old output though, right? It still has the old A and B from being displayed with the array, right? It still has that exception, but we didn't get any new errors. That right now is assembling a list of 3 elements, or 3 nodes. As an exercise for yourself really quick, maybe try picturing what this picture on the bottom would look like if you were to draw it out with that C in there now. Okay, so hopefully you've thought about that for a minute. So let me actually go and do that. Let me finish that picture. Let me see. This isn't gonna look so nice because I have to put my node off to the side, just because I didn't kind of leave myself enough space there. So let's go over here. We have our other node. And this one, right, this is going to be storing C, right? So this is what we would get if we have this third person here, right? We're kind of trying to add the third. And again, right, my goal here is just, I want to update my picture to see what it looks like based on what this code is doing. So over here, right, this line here, right, the purpose of that is to do this, right? It's to create the new object called C. And it's also going to introduce this other variable, right, P3, and P3 is something that points at C, right? So this is how my memory looks, right? My program looks once it's executed everything up until this P3 line. And then we have these 2 other things we need to look at. So the first thing is that we need to go P3.setNext of people. So what that's saying, right, is that I need to update C's next, right? What is the person that comes after C? Well, the person that comes after C is going to be the person the people is currently referencing. Well, right now, people is going to be referencing B. So in that case, what I need to do is I need to update my picture by drawing an arrow from C over to B. And this is getting a little bit dense now, but this is how this line is going to affect our program, right? We're saying that, oh, the thing that comes after C is now B. Once I have that, I need to finish it off, right? I need to do this. People equal P3. So instead of people being pointed at P2, right? That's what we had here, right? P2 was B. People was looking at B. Instead of that, what we want to do is we want it to be pointing at C, right? That's what the line says. Okay, people, right? That people variable is now going to be pointing at C. So let's draw it in here, and I'm actually going to erase out our old arrow, right? Just so we can kind of see how things are going together. So let's jump over here. So now people is going to be referencing C. So that's how our linked list is going to look after this code is executed. So at this point, right, our people variable over here, right, this thing, right, is now referenced, right, it's now referencing C. C references B, B references A. And kind of PT, right, P2 is still hanging around because P2 is talking about B, right, that was kind of where B was introduced. And then P3, right, P3 is still pointing at C, right, P3, it was the thing that introduced it, right? But overall, right, that kind of that first variable we have, right, people, right, the thing that was going to be pointing, that was supposed to point at the beginning of our list, is now pointing at C, right? So it's pointing at that first element, and then if we follow that linkages, right, if we follow those links, then we're able to get from C to B to A, right? So we're able to view all the people in that list. So the code we have over here is what we need in order to build out a linked list. Let me actually go for a quick jump here in the video edit, and let me draw kind of a better picture here for you guys. So here we are. This is our new updated picture. So here we can see, right, we have our variables people, P3, P2, and this is where they point, right? So people at the end, right, is pointing at C, C points at B, B points at A. And then, right, P3 and P2 are still hanging around. Those are pointing at C and B.